Welcome back, everyone. Is it just me, or do you think people are a lot less private than they used to be? For example, I hear personal conversations when people are on their cell phones all the time. I read about intimate details on social media sites, and I can learn all about a person without ever having met them. So, do you think we're in a world of disappearing privacy? I say the answer is yes. But the question I'm asking you, is that a good thing or a bad thing? That's the topic of today's show. If you want to join in and tell us what you think, you can email me at any time at lynn@lynndoyle.net. In our first segment, we were talking a little bit about the accessibility to individuals these days, and that's just pretty much the way things are because records are public record. What's different today? Why does it seem so much more accessible than it did maybe when I bought my first house?
What happens is that certain information was available, like it used to be. You fill out a form, Department of Motor Vehicle Records, you could get someone's driving history, his address, a vehicle he owns, run a tag, you name it, you could get it. And then with the tragic death of actress Rebecca Schaefer, and then the 9/11 catastrophic loss, that all changed. And then what happens there is rather than going to a courthouse and researching records, and with the rise in technology, you can do a lot of these things online. Things not only on Facebook and MySpace, but in other areas as well.
So what you used to have to do to dig around and get information about people is now literally at our fingertips, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things here that we have to forget, this may be an unpopular statement when we're so concerned about our privacy. I think everybody is. But remember, this is a big balancing test between the individual's privacy and the incredible convenience and the benefits of the internet. And I'll give you an example. Suppose you want a pizza, you go online, you search Google, you find the closest pizza place. That's free. Then you go to MapQuest and find out how to drive there. You don't pay for that either. There are a lot of these things, they're not provided by the Internet Fairy. Those are funded by advertising. And true, they are capturing your information when you're browsing, and maybe that's part of the necessary evil. But the bottom line is the internet laws as they are so lax, and quite frankly, if you look at acts like the Patriot Act, that actually enables the federal government to get to your information even more easily than some of these private companies.
So is there anything at all we can do to maintain some dignity, some privacy? I mean, I understand that records are public, but is it really fair that someone can look up and see whether I'm a registered Democrat, Republican, or independent? That's my own business.
But that's not considered private information with the laws that we have today. I mean, our laws protect discrete pieces of information, things that the government has decided are confidential and should be sensitive. So medical information, your health care records, your financial bank accounts, your social security number, your credit card numbers, things of that nature. If it doesn't fall into that category, there's a problem there because we don't have a comprehensive privacy law, and then we have some state laws, but it really just isn't covered.
So there's really nothing I can do to keep that information from becoming available to the general public?
You can protect yourself by being vigilant about what you have exposed on the social networking sites, making sure you read the privacy statements, opt out when appropriate. I mean, there are other things called geotags, which are now attached to pictures, and I find that actually more frightening because people now, if you post a photograph on Twitter or one of the social networking sites, and it's from a GPS-enabled telephone or a smartphone or something like that, or a GPS-enabled camera, people can actually determine where that photograph was taken, and that can obviously lead to predators, it can lead to thefts, everything else.
Yeah, that always scares me when people announce where they are. And I know one of the big things now, Danny, on Facebook is, Lynn Doyle just checked in at Del Frisco's restaurant, and when I don't do that, but other people do. And I think, why are you telling someone you just checked into the airport, you just checked into a hotel? I mean, if someone wanted to get to you, you've basically said, here I am, come get me. I don't get that.
People of all ages now are using the checked in feature, and what it does is it gives a running list of where you are at what time. If you've checked into a particular restaurant, people can set it up to check in when they get home, believe it or not. Why you would want to do that, I'm not entirely sure, but people for some reason want to let their followers know, hey, I just got home.
They're followers.
Right,
I mean, I know that Twitter is very popular, but come on, the followers need to know that I just checked.
We are in an era.
Here at the show now, just in case you were wondering.
We are in an era of redefined celebrity, right? I mean, we really are. People think of themselves as having followers, and they do. I mean, if you look at Twitter, that's really what Twitter is. That's its entire base, is people who want to let people know what's going on.
I love you, but I don't really care where you're eating, okay? I mean, honest to God, I'm sorry. If people have nothing else to pay attention to, that's just my own personal opinion. Now, you guys who have watched the show or who know me know that I am the most computer illiterate person out there. But I wanted Joe to give me an idea of if you were going to look up something on Danny, for example, like you said, okay, he's going to be on the show with me. I want to know who this guy is. What would you do? How would I go about finding out about Danny Savalas?
Sometimes you have to walk to the computer in order to get your answer. And by that I mean, if I was going to look at Danny, what I would do is I want to find out maybe first where he lives and how old he is. And how I would do that, even though I have no information on him, I know he lives in Philadelphia. I can give you an approximate age, 21. That was a joke. And what I would do there is I'd go to the Board of Elections. And there they have the computer system where you can check by name. And you can get a list of all the people that have that name with an unusual spelling. And if he ever voted, it'll come up where he is. And even if it's old information, suppose Danny's moved 3 times since then. There, I'll get his date of birth. And with his date of birth, I'm sure he has a driver's license, we can start the searches there. We need to start with a qualifier, like a date of birth or a social security number. And if we can't get it there, then we have to walk to City Hall and research maybe marriage records. We don't really care if he's married. We don't need a certificate, Lynn, but we'd like to see the marriage application. That'll tell us all that.
All of those, by the way. That search on the marriage side will come up completely blank. But you know,
we'll get an A for effort.
What he's talking about, you know, some of the information he's talking about isn't nearly as nefarious. The fears a lot of people have are more, what about my web browsing history? What about cookies? What about these other things that are storing and providing that information? People have said that keeping track of your web browsing information may be the closest to putting down on paper your thoughts, because that's really the way our mind flows with our web searches. So it is a really dangerous thing. It's that information I think people would be really terrified to have out there, especially if you're looking at maybe some dubious websites.
Wow. Now, see, I just put you in under Google, and you're listed here more than a dozen times, and the first one says law guru. So I'm taking that as a good thing. Law guru attorney Daniel Savalas, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania lawyer, tells you a map to your office, mentions that you're on Facebook a couple of times, you're LinkedIn with the profile, have some photos I could look at. Then it talks about your law office. I mean, these are just ones that I'm picking up. There's a whole bunch of pictures of you. I guess you've posted these.
Please don't scroll down. Don't scroll down anymore. I'm afraid of what else you might turn up on that search.
There it is on Twitter. No, but I'm just wondering, I mean, does that bother you, or do you just know that that's out there and it doesn't really concern you that anyone who's watching the show or anyone who hears your name could look at
Great question, things? Lynn. When you first asked about that and you list the sites that you listed, I breathed a sigh of relief and I said, well, that's all acceptable to me. But just as easily, if we'd been here on TV and you'd announced, you know, somethingterrible.com that I wouldn't have wanted to know about or want other people to know that I've been involved with.
Well, I'm still looking.
Yeah, please, let's move away from that one. But if the answer had been something negative, I think my answer would be a lot different. We all want to control the information about us that's out there. We all want to create a profile that is admirable, appealing, and not something that would damage us professionally. The problem is a lot of people are acting very reckless when it comes to posting information about themselves.
Well, the other thing too, Sandra, that is of a concern to people like myself is that your name comes up when it's mentioned in someone else's blog, and they can pretty much say, since there are no laws qualifying what's written in a blog, they can pretty much say whatever they want, whether there's any truth to it or not.
That's right. I mean, and of course, if it crosses the line to defamation, you know, you're into a different story. But of course, you're also a public person, so it really has changed the way.
How about hurt feelings? It may not be defamation, but some things are written, and you just think, well, it comes up every time somebody puts your name in. You know, if they were unhappy with you as an attorney or me as a television host, it's like that just seems like there's no way to control that, and that's frightening.
It is. It is.
All right, so be nice when you're writing those things. Okay, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, how to be private in a public world.